Happy Resurrection Day. Man, you picked a great day to be here. I would say that next Sunday, but you picked a great day to be here today. So glad you're with us today. My name is Joel Adorman. I'm the lead pastor. For those of you joining us online, again, want to say a special welcome to you. Thank you for joining us whenever and wherever you are listening to this. If you are venturing on when you want to rejoin us in person, as was said earlier, 9 o'clock is a great option. Plenty of space to spread out. Fewer people there. That means fewer coming and going, and probably a little more comfortable as you're kind of re-entering a little bit. But we just want you to feel welcome, and we will be happy to see you whenever we get to see your face again. You know, one of the interesting things about us as people is we always want to follow something great. We always want to pursue something that is worth pursuing. And I remember as a kid, I heard this a lot. I grew up as a pastor's kid. So, I heard sermons all the time. I have been in this church thing my whole life, heard a bunch of sermons, heard my dad preaching them. And that was back in the day when it was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And I was there for all of them. We had sometimes special services. I was there too, front row. I grew up in this stuff. But it also meant that we moved a lot. And so most of the time, moves were fine. It didn't bother me. It was kind of interesting to see different parts of the country, get to know different people, and I still have friends kind of in all those different areas, and that's been really neat. But there was one particular move that was particularly challenging for me, and I was just going into high school, and we moved from Longview, Texas, all the way over to Fulton, Mississippi. And I can assure you there was more than 483 miles in one state separating those two cities. Longview, Texas was an up-and-coming city in East Texas of just over 72,000 people at the time, and they had a star next to their name. It was booming. They were building schools left and right. They were building industry left and right. There were jobs to be had. They were begging for people to work. It was just booming when we lived there. And on top of that, I got to be part of this amazing school and this amazing marching band because by that point in my life, I had given up on football because too many knee injuries at a young age taught me, this is dumb. I am not doing this. So I decided to go full bore into the music thing, and I was part of this marching band that was huge. And you had to audition just for the spots to get on the field, and I was a total band nerd, so I loved it. It was incredible. So then we moved to Fulton, Mississippi, nestled in the beautiful northeast corner of Mississippi. More trees than people. The sunrise and the sunsets were beautiful. And on a good year, there were 3,200 people in that city. Told you there were more trees than people. They probably changed the sign of the city when we moved into town because there were just so few people. And I went from this little fish in a big pond to a huge fish in a tiny pond. And I didn't know what to do with myself. If you wanted to do something fun in Fulton, Mississippi, what you did is you headed west to Tupelo, Mississippi to go see the birthplace of Elvis Presley. Anybody remember Elvis? That was our claim to fame, as we lived in the part where Elvis was born. But if you really wanted to have a good evening, you actually headed north into Tennessee. And you did that, or it even got worse, and you had to go east into Alabama. There wasn't much going on in Fulton. And so I thought, man, everything I thought I was going to do, everything I thought I was going to be, all the opportunities I thought I had, because I thought Longview, Texas was what was worth pursuing. It was a hot, hip place to be. And now, I kind of thought I was all washed up, and I was only 15 years old. You can imagine how difficult life was for a few years there. But are you all that different from me? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But maybe you too want to follow something great. You want to follow something that you know is going to matter. You want to be a part of something that's actually going to make a difference, that you know when you get up in the morning, you're making an impact on something and somebody. Maybe it's your school. Maybe kind of like me, you were all into a certain activity, or maybe even academics in school. Maybe you're a high schooler and you're working through that right now, that world of getting that scholarship, getting to that next place, recovering all that weird time that you lost of 2020 to 2021. And you're thinking through that. You're thinking through college. Maybe you're college age. You're thinking about when I get that degree and I get out to the next place. Maybe you're in trade school or something. You're going, okay, when I get this certificate, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go be a part of something later. And maybe you're an adult and you just turn that back around to your kid. Now you're trying to get them in the right school so they have the right opportunity because you want them to be great and to follow something great. Adults even do it all by themselves with our jobs. You may call it resume building. What it means is you're tired of this thing, so you want to go be a part of that thing. And I'm pretty sure that thing is better than this thing. Grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. So we always pursue that next thing because we want to be part of something great. We want to pursue something that makes a difference for us, makes a difference for others. And we always want to go after the next thing. We're never quite satisfied. Amazing thing with us humans, we haven't changed that much since the beginning. Humans have always been this way. We always kind of want to do the next big thing, the bigger, better deal. We always want to leave this for that. I do enough marriage counseling to tell you we all do that in various ways. I always want this thing and that pursuit and this and that, all because we want that something amorphous great. And the people of Jesus' day, some 2,000 years ago, were no different. Now, they were under Roman occupation, so because of that, there weren't many chances to do much. Rome pretty much dictated your moves. They were content to leave you alone unless you tried to step out of line. Then they made examples out of you, harsh examples. So if you were under Roman rule and you were Jewish, as Jesus was and his early followers, you did the best you could. What they did and what the Jewish people of Jesus' day did is they had divided themselves into religious camps, into kind of like denominations today, except they would have been a little tighter even still because they had that common expression of being, occupied by Rome. But, there were Sadducees and Pharisees and Essenes and Zealots. There were just all kinds of groups, and they were always arguing with each other. They never could quite agree. But by the time Jesus comes on the scene, they could all agree pretty much on one thing, that this Jesus guy was different, and they wanted to figure out how different he was. Depending on which camp they were in, they either thought he was the Savior or absolute devil. But we're entering that point in the story with Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew that their tone is changing, and they're starting to see him more as devil. They're starting to see him more as a problem. So if we're going to talk about a life of purpose and having a purpose worth following, we have to go back to what Jesus said about finding that purpose and what does it mean to pursue something great. And Jesus talked about that. He answered that, not in so many words, but you're going to see that he talked about that because he knows our need. He knows what it was driving us. He knows why we do this, and so he speaks to that need. And you're going to hear a question that is asked of him today that they're asking the same thing. They're asking about greatness. They're asking about what is the right pursuit? What is the thing I'm supposed to pursue with all my passion? And we're in the Gospel of Matthew today. I love Matthew's Gospel so much. We just finished a series in Matthew's Gospel. And when you spend that much time in one book, you can kind of hear the author's voice. And I love Matthew's approach. Matthew was a tax collector in his time, and then Jesus redeemed him and pulled him out of death into life and made him one of his early followers, one of his apostles. And being a tax collector in Matthew's day, or in Jesus' day, meant that he was a traitor to his own people. They wanted to crucify him. And Jesus puts a tax collector who's considered a traitor, he puts him on the same team as a zealot who actually did want to take his head off. Only Jesus would put these people on the same team. My bet is he probably put the zealot and Matthew in the same room. That's kind of how Jesus works. He makes us get along. But Matthew's story is very unique. I love his story. But Matthew 22, verses 34 through 40, and we're going to talk, there's some terms in here. We're going to talk about these groups on the other side of it. But I want you to hear the story of how Jesus answers this question about following something great. So hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, we're going to talk about them in a minute, the Pharisees got together. We'll talk about them too. One of the Pharisees, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and prophets hang on these two commandments. So back into verse 34, you have the Sadducees asking questions. We're jumping in the middle of the story here. The Sadducees were the theological liberals of Jesus' day. It's easier to tell you what they actually did believe than what they didn't believe in. They had a list of what they didn't believe. They believed in very few things. But they had one advantage going for them in Jesus' time. They were very cozy with Rome. They were like this with Rome. The Sadducees were like the political ruling class of Jesus' day. So the great Sanhedrin, when you run across that in the New Testament, predominantly they were Sadducees. The high priest was a Sadducee. It was as much political as it was religious. They were the ones who were in charge, okay? At least in the eyes of Rome. So they had asked some questions. Jesus stumped them. So then the Pharisees come along. The Pharisees were like the religious conservatives. They were so conservative, they were really fundamentalist. They took it to a new extreme. They took the 600 and so some odd commands of God in the Old Testament, and they just fleshed them out. So for example, if the Lord said you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath, which he did say that, they said, well, let's define work. So you can take 19 paces on the Sabbath, but not 20, that's sin. And they just did that for all. So they just made thousands of extra commands. But they also debated a lot on, okay, of these commands that God gave in the Old Testament, specifically in the first 5 books, they would debate on which ones were the heaviest or the weightiest, the most important, and which of them were less important, less weighty, lighter. They use different terms for it. Now, it's all the command of God, and they all believed it needed to be kept, but there were some that were clearly more important. For example, the command of do not murder clearly was more significant than you're not supposed to boil a baby goat in its mother's milk. Both of those were in the commands of the Lord for the Lord's people of the Old Testament, but they didn't carry equal weight. And so they would debate this, and then they would get into these wonderful hypotheticals. I'm so sorry that we theological eggheads do this to people. We still do it today. But they would debate things like, well, what if you had a particular illness for a person, and the only serum for that illness was to boil a baby goat in its mother's milk and give them that sauce? Is that sin? What? Does that matter? It's so hypothetical. They would debate this stuff. They were always fighting and grumbling and complaining at each other. Oh, they disagreed. So then, with that context, an expert in the law, the PhD of Old Testament theology of his day, walks up to Jesus. I can picture the guy, well-dressed, clean-cut, a Jew of the Jews, holding his head up a little bit, probably adjusting his robes. And he says, teacher. Pause. He calls him teacher. I don't think he actually thought Jesus was a teacher. I think he thought Jesus was a crackpot. But he addresses him, Jesus, or teacher. Which is the greatest command in all the law? He is putting Jesus right smack dab in the middle of their greatest debate. What's the most important? What's the weightiest of the weightiest? What is the one thing you must do above all other else? And he throws us that. He thinks he got Jesus. If this guy had something to lean on, he would have been like, your move, Jesus, because I just got you. He thought he had him. He thought he cornered Jesus with the ultimate question that nobody could answer. And Jesus just says a law from the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 6, verse 5. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. He didn't even bat an eyelash. He just gave him the answer. And it must have been shocking because he said what they should have already known and probably already did, but he said it in a way they weren't used to hearing it. And then he combined it with an idea they had never put together before, and that was love your neighbor as yourself. And now he's rocking their world, all of them, from the Sadducees to the Pharisees to the Zealots in the back and the Essenes sitting out by the Dead Sea. They're all blown away at this point, wondering what in the world all that really means. That when he summarizes everything in the Old Testament, all 600 and some odd commands, he says the greatest, the weightiest, the most significant was something they heard every single day since they were children. They heard their fathers praying this at sunrise and sunset. They heard their grandfathers praying it at sunrise and sunset. And his father's father, 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 and his father's father. I'm almost there. And his father's fathers, and his father's fathers, and his father's father, because it was the Lord told him to pray. It was part of what they did every morning and every evening, this prayer that Orthodox Jews today still say every morning and every evening. And it's known by the first word in Hebrew, which is Shema. It's the word for hear. It began, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart." So they heard this every day. They heard it twice a day. And Jesus is sitting there, whatever he's doing, he's probably got to be going, "Were you not paying attention for thousands of years as everybody's been reciting this?" I don't know that he's saying that, but just imagine he was. Because this expert in the law thought he had him. And Jesus is saying, you don't even understand what you're praying. You don't even understand the words coming out of your mouth. And we're going to hone in on verses 39 and 40 of this passage next week. But today, we're going to look at verses 37 and 38, Jesus' answer. Because look at it again. He says, Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind." And just to put an exclamation point on it, he adds, "This is the first and greatest command. This is the weightiest of the weight. This is the heaviest of the heavy. This is the one of absolute preeminence of all of them." And a Pharisee probably would have found that very uncomfortable. You say, "But Joel, they've been reciting it for thousands of years. They themselves are praying this prayer, right?" Yes. And the Pharisees were known to commit huge parts of the Bible to memory. Matter of fact, you couldn't even really call yourself a good Pharisee unless you could recite the first 5 books of the Bible from memory. They would have heard this. They would have memorized this. They knew exactly where it came from. So why would they have been uncomfortable? Because a Pharisee's life was built around doing. I do this, and God is happy. I do this, and God is pleased. I do this, God blesses me. I do that, and God punishes me. I do that, and God is mad. I do that, and God looks down on me. I do that, and God shames me. I do that, and God takes things away. I do that, and I'm just like the filthy sinners. Their whole life was built around just doing stuff. And Jesus' answer was about being something. See, we see the word love and we think affection. That's not how Jesus was using it. And the language Matthew was writing in originally was Greek, not English. Specifically 1st century street Greek, which is called Koine Greek. It's not classical Greek. But this word remains in both languages, and the word is much less about affection, and it's really more understood as loyalty and allegiance. Now, they knew that. That's why they would have been uncomfortable with the answer. Jesus is saying the first, the greatest, the heaviest, the most significant command is not about what you do. It is about showing loyalty and allegiance to the Lord with your heart, soul, mind. Loyalty and allegiance with all your heart. Loyalty and allegiance with all your soul. Loyalty and allegiance with all your mind. And Jesus says, this is the first and greatest command. Your doing comes out of who you are. Your doing is because of who you are. Your being produces your behavior. And that would have made them very uncomfortable. He gets to the next part. But the next part only makes sense when you understand the first part. And so what Jesus is saying to these hyper-religious, extremely fundamental people that eventually crucified him is what he is still echoing to us today. That he has a plan for our lives. He has a plan for your life. But that plan is a doozy. Look at God's plan for your life. Surrender your heart, soul, and mind, your everything. Surrender is his plan. That's what loyalty, allegiance in everything. See, Jesus has done it so that we can be it. That's what Good Friday and Easter is all about. Jesus has done the work. You can't do enough to make him happy. If God had a refrigerator, do you understand your picture would already be on it? Because he's done it already. He's paid the price. On Good Friday, we have this candle up here, and this is the only thing that's left over from our Good Friday set. And at the very end of the service, we blew it out and reminded each other that Jesus died. And today it's been lit the entire time as a reminder that he picked that life back up, that this logo on this podium, it's an empty tomb and the stone rolled away and the sun has risen, reminding us Good Friday and Resurrection Day was because Jesus has done the work so that we can be what he called us to be. But that begins with surrender. Now, I'm going to be really honest. That's a good thing for a pastor to be, by the way, is really honest. But here's the problem with that. If I'm really honest, surrender does not come easily. Surrender is hard. Let me walk you through a journey and show you how hard it really can be. A lot of us approach our faith in Jesus, or this whole Jesus thing, well, not a lot, a few people, approach him like an interest. He's an interest. Interest is something you tinker with. Yeah, it's not a big deal. You're not going to learn a whole lot about it. I enjoy mowing my lawn. I'm not going to learn a whole lot about what it takes to grow a greener lawn. It's an interest. I don't care that much about it. But we can approach Jesus that way. It's an interest. Just tinker. Not going to learn a whole lot. Then the second one, we get to the next level, and now he's a hobby. Now, hobby is different. Hobby means you actually do enjoy it. You want to learn some more about it, and you do it if there's time. That's the kicker, if there's time. So if anything else comes up, you're gone. You do the other thing. Because it's just a hobby. Not a big deal. It's just a hobby. Then we get down to the next level, commitment. Commitment's a different story. Commitment now says, I value what this is so much that I will clear my calendar to make these things happen. It's so important to me, I will clear off Sunday services. I will clear off for my small group. I will clear off for a ladies' event or a men's event. I will clear it off to serve because it's important to us. But Jesus didn't call us to any of those. He didn't even call us to commitment. He called us to surrender. Here's the difference. Commitment says, Lord, I will clear my schedule because it's important, and I value you, and I love you, and I'm going to clear my schedule. Surrender is when you realize you don't have a schedule. At every second of your life, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year of your entire existence is entirely His, and He has given that time to you to manage for Him. Amen. Way different idea. That's surrender. That's His plan. That's how you find real purpose and real significance. That's why He says it is loyalty and allegiance with heart, soul, and mind, with everything you've got. That means wherever you walk, it's His time. It's His job. It's His hobby. It's all His. And He's given that back to you for Him. I heard this great quote on an NPR show, All Things Considered, years ago, and I wrote it down. It's a great quote. It said this, when a captain is without direction, no wind on earth will take him there. In other words, you can follow whatever you want to follow, but if it's not really great, it's going to lead you nowhere. All it's going to lead you to is to the next little hill so you can see, oh, there's still something more I got to do. Oh, there's still something else. Okay. Oh, there's still something else to go reach. If it's not great, there's no wind on earth that's going to take you there. Please, Jesus hasn't called us to interest, hobby, commitment. He's called us to surrender. As a friend of my wife's and mine would often say, she would tell her coworkers, Jesus is not a crutch for me. I don't need a crutch. I need a stretcher. That's surrender. To realize that I'm broken. I'm nothing without Him. And so I'm called to surrender heart, soul, and mind, everything. So then my question is, are you following something truly great? Are you following something that's just going to make you hungry for the next mountaintop? Or are you following something that's actually great? I joke about being washed up at 15, and I guess I kind of thought I was. But God taught me something out in the sticks of Mississippi that I wouldn't have traded for the world. See, it was because I was in that small place that when I felt God kind of tugging on me to get involved in church ministry at a different level, because of my dad being a pastor, having us out in this little small area where a lot of the churches were so small, he talked to a friend of his who then asked me to come lead worship for them. I was 15 and leading worship for this little wonderful church out in the country of North Mississippi. I love those people to this day. My goodness, they took a chance on me. It was wonderful. I would have never gotten that in Longview, Texas, where the average church size was about 1,000. I'd have never gotten that chance. I got it there when, on a good Sunday, 45 people showed up. It was such a wonderful experience. And so I thought I was going to be a band director. I thought that's what God made me do and it was made me for because that's what I loved. I loved music and I loved teaching and I loved all that. And that's what I thought I was going to be. I had this great plan for what I was going to do, what school I was going to go to, and God puts me out in the sticks and now he does that. Well, then because of that experience I had gotten vocally and the experience I had gotten instrumentally, I did get scholarships that I thought I wasn't going to get anymore. And I was able to go to college at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. Go Eagles, not Tigers, but Eagles, that's my school. But we don't do football that well, we do arts. But the point is, I go to the school that I needed to go to, and then on top of that, I leave that school. I end up in New Orleans, Louisiana, where God gives me the love of my life, my prime rib, my good thing, my wife. And then somehow, for some weird reason, not only does she say yes to marrying me, now I'm in a kind of full-blown ministry. Now she goes with me all the way to California, where I end up leading worship at a very large church, and I'm in my upper 20s doing it. It would have never happened if I stayed in Longview, Texas. It only happened because God took me out in the middle of what I thought was nowhere, where he taught me what it meant to constantly say yes. Now, obviously, I'm not doing the music thing anymore. I'm not here singing, so obviously something happened in between. Because God just kept saying, okay, Joel, I'm going to take you over here now. And so this guy that thought he was washed up at 15, I'm so embarrassed to say it now. Although I was so washed up, I thought that God has just forgotten all about me, ended up finishing far more education than he deserves. I have 2 wonderful kids, and I get to be the lead pastor of a church in Merced, California that is changing our little corner of the world. Man, I got the best life in the world. If y'all figure out how much I love what I do, you're going to stop paying me, and I'm going to have some real trouble paying my bills. I got the best life in the universe because God taught me something in the sticks of Mississippi, and that was about following something great. I'm not saying I get it right all the time. I just said surrender is hard. Surrender is a daily battle. I am a type A stubborn person. I got the spiritual bumps on the back of my head to show how many times God has gone, no, son, no, no, no. Not there, boy. No, no, yes, yes, right there. Okay, keep going. That's me. I get it. I get it. But if you're not following something truly great, your life's not going to amount to anything. Following him, your life's going to change your little corner of the world. Because that's what he wants to do with you. He sends you out into various places. By saying that we surrender everything to him, it's not saying you're supposed to be in professional ministry. You are in professional ministry. You're out there every day in professional ministry, living your life, showing people Jesus, showing them how a follower of Jesus reacts and behaves and loves and lives and laughs. We should be some of the lightest-hearted people on the planet because we have a joy that the world doesn't give us and that pandemics don't take away. We have a joy of a God that rose from the dead, gave us life, and now truly shows us what living is. Man, we got a great life going on. And that's what you get to do every single day. So my question is then, follower of Jesus, you got the following Jesus going on, okay, but where's that area that you don't give him access to? Where's that spot that you say, you know, Lord, this one's mine because you don't understand. I got to be a little more cutthroat in this universe. I'm yours in 9 other areas. Just this one, I just need this one. See, the scriptures would tell us that one is your idol. That one is that thing you're putting before God and saying, no, you're not number one there. You're number one everywhere else. No, he doesn't. See, God's got this problem. He can't play second fiddle. He's going to be first, and that's all he's going to take. So I suggest you write that area down in your discussion guide there, in your message notes. If you're online, just download it, print it out. And I have a thing about writing it with your hand. There's something powerful when you commit something on paper by your own hand. You say, Joel, I don't have any area where I haven't given it to the Lord. Liar. I got some areas I ain't given to the Lord. Come on. I do this for a living, folks. I work in like a 100% Christian environment, all right? Even the church cats that hang around here, they're Christian too. We're covered here, okay? Y'all come by here and you're Christians. I mean, this is how it works. If I got areas, you got areas, we're all in this together. Seriously. Commit it to paper, and that becomes what you pray about. That's what you pray about and say, Lord, you got to help me. You got to help me surrender this to you. Because maybe it is something where you're saying, I don't know how to do this, Lord, your way. I don't know how this works your way. And that's okay. That's okay to tell the Lord that. He already knows it anyway, so tell him that. Say, Lord, I need your help there. Says, as Jesus followers, he's not done cooking on us yet. We're not done in the oven, so let the master chef keep working, okay? Let him do that. But what about for those of you who aren't Jesus followers yet? What about those of you who you haven't made that commitment? You haven't followed him at all. Maybe you're like the Sadducees and you're kind of kicking the tires on Jesus going, well, I like some of what he says, but there's some of that whole, I don't know. Or maybe you were raised in a faith tradition that was so strict and straight-laced to where you believe that you've got to be and act a certain way before Jesus will even love you. Both extremes are lies. The reality is Jesus has already proven his love through the cross, through the empty tomb. He's already proven it. He made the first move. Now he asks you to make the next one. He asks you to commit yourself to him, to surrender your life. And you can do that as simply as just saying, Lord, I admit I'm a sinner. I believe the best I understand that you're God's son, and I surrender, I commit my life to you. It can be that simple. You say, Joel, it can't be that simple. He's already done the work. He did the hard part. And now he dares you to move and come to him. And he just stands there, arms open, saying, yes, that's it. Come to me, all who are weary, all who are tired, all who are broken. Come to me, you'll find rest. Jesus says, I've got a purpose for you to follow. I can make you part of something great. Because the call of Jesus is to follow him, and he is great. If you're committing your life to Jesus today, if you're online, there's a link just below the live stream. You can click that link. And if you're here in the house, you can complete that connection card. Whatever your decision was, if you're recommitting, you can mark that down. If you're one of those people saying, yes, I'm going to work on something in my life, I'm giving it to Jesus, mark recommitting. And maybe you're going to mark committing your life to Jesus. We're not going to spam you when you turn this in to us. We're not going to do that. We're going to give you some information, and then you can just give a rip. I love saying that. Give a rip. I love it. And you can just put that in the boxes on the way out by the glass doors on your way out. There's a big box there for any in-person giving you might be doing. And then these. You drop that all in there. We'll take care of it. Because we want to take those next steps with you. Because you don't have to do it alone. On your way in today, you probably were accosted by our wonderful First Impressions team that handed you these bracelets. I love watching this happen because people will always take a free thing. But this is really free, to you at least. And it just says, with purpose, on purpose. You probably have looked at it, maybe even put it on. You've probably seen a bunch of us wearing them today. And of course, that's the subtitle of our series, Life with Purpose, on Purpose. And what I do with mine, I actually have mine, and I'm left-handed, so it's on my left hand because my watch is on my right hand. So for those of you looking at me going, why is this watch on the wrong hand? It's because I'm left-handed. Now you know. Knowing's half the battle, right? Some of y'all over 40 will get that. Okay, so I put the writing facing me because I want to look down and see, that's right, my life is lived with purpose, on purpose. That Jesus has something I'm supposed to do with every interaction. Maybe it's just a smile. Maybe it's just being kind. You know, I told people that in the past 13 months or so, you know, I have talked to the health department more than I've ever talked to any health department in the history of my life. I mean, and they're great, but I always take a chance to go, okay, these people are under constant stress. Or people here in our own congregation who are physicians and nurses and working in medical fields. I have the same approach to you, and I think, okay, you're in a lot of stress all the time right now. How can I bless you? How can I at least let you know that I'm praying for you and I'm supporting you, and I appreciate your effort and what you do. It's just a reminder. Live your life with purpose, on purpose. No accidents. Don't be a cosmic pinball just kind of making it through to the next Sunday. No, God's put you there. You have something you can do. You have something you can be for somebody. What a gift that you get to do that. If you need more on your way out today, maybe you missed them, maybe somehow you got past us. That is hard to do. If you got past us, you're impressive. That's hard to do. You can't commando your way in this building without our First Impression folks loving you. But if you missed it, we have more in the lobby, and we have plenty. If we run it, take them all. You empty us out because you say, I got some friends I want to give this to. Please take them. We already have more on order. We're going to keep these in stock for the next 5 weeks for this series. We're going to make sure you have these because it's a great conversation piece, and it's a great reminder for what we're supposed to do for Jesus as his followers. Because if Matthew is right, and I tend to think he is, then Jesus is a purpose worth following. He is something great. He is the greatest. And he's worth our pursuit. And he invites us to follow him to discover who we really are by discovering all that he really is and what he wants to be through us.